Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. It's Friday. You know what that means.
Front Office Friday! I didn't get fired edition.
Oh, Keith Smith, still here.
Still here.
Still standing.
Well, sitting at least.
Sitting, but sitting tall, let's say, despite
proud.
Despite the massive outcry on the internet. For your ouster, because how dare you express an opinion online? Gosh, should know better, Keith. Should know better.
God forbid I talk anything but basketball. And I get it, man. Ball is life. I try to live that, but there's other parts of life too that occasionally pop in there.
You know what? Here, like I was gonna save this for some scheduled nonsense and everything, but so there were. We'll get into, by the way, everybody joining the show live, we're going to take your questions, comments. We're going to get into all of the stuff going on around the NBA. We'll talk about the latest rumors and all of that. But Keith was getting some flack for expressing his opinions, somewhat political related stuff, right? Based on the debate and everything like that. Here's my issue with it. Like I have chosen to not make any of my political opinions known. Like I don't, that was just a choice I made. Probably goes back to being a teacher where I never wanted my students to be influenced by my own political opinion. So I don't express any thoughts on politics one way or another online. I follow that stuff. I follow different people and everything like that because I have a history and political science major. That's what my degree is in. And so I will follow that stuff, but I don't express any opinions online. But that doesn't mean that other people can't. And what I think is incredible is when we look at things like people getting upset with Keith because he expressed his thoughts and opinions is how in this day and age, when we are probably more tolerant than we've ever been, and that's a good thing, we're also less tolerant of people who have differing opinions of our own. We get so upset, and I just find it fascinating that people are so incapable of seeing someone express an opinion that is different from what theirs is, and that's true for both sides of things. It's always unfortunate. I think that it should be okay to express your opinions and your thoughts on things if that's something you choose to do.
Yeah, my extremely offensive tweet was that I have personally worked with, a lot of Haitian people, and they're all great people that I know. I realize that's a generalization, just like a bad generalization can be made. Fully understand. There's bad apples in every bunch. I get all that. But the backlash was to that I just said, the people I know are great people. They don't deserve the treatment they're getting. And that was wildly offensive to a lot of people because 99% of online is, well, what about? Right. And it doesn't matter if it's sports or politics or, I've even seen people do it with weather. I saw somebody tweeting about the hurricane. Weather? Yeah. And they were like, man, I hope everybody in Louisiana is safe with the hurricane coming in. And one of the replies was, yeah, I don't see you tweeting about tornadoes or the earthquake in California. It's just, it's like I wish I could remember who tweeted it.
Good Lord.
Years ago, but it was like, you tweet, I really like pancakes. Somebody's like, what's your problem with waffles?
The classic,
right? Why don't you like waffles?
Right?
So it's like, it's just crazy. People are nuts. People get very tough with the anonymity of online.
Yeah.
I'm ready to talk basketball, but I am going to, because that's what we do here. But I am going to say this, hopefully for the last time. The NBA is what we cover and what we do. But we are both husbands, fathers, friends, children, citizens first. What we do is the NBA. That's what we cover. We cover the world of basketball. But all those other things are part of who we are too. Then that's, if you don't like it, it's, that's on you. That's not on us to change who we are. And when it comes to Twitter, it's real easy. Unfollow. If that's not enough, block. Just go. And I need to take that advice myself sometimes too. I fully get that, but it's really not that hard. But that's it. I'm ready to talk ball from my end.
All right. And more than anything else, I think people just shouldn't be so offended to see something that doesn't go along with whatever their political view is. Yeah. And I think that's big picture. Again, I don't want to spend a bunch of time on politics or anything like that, but
just be kind.
Really be
hard.
Yeah, it's not difficult, and I think part of the issue is that you've got both sides because you have to get butts out of seats. You have to get people to get up and go vote. So on both sides, it's if the other side wins, it's the end of the world, right? Everything is doom and gloom. You
Yep.
cannot let the other side win. You must. This is so critical to the point where we get to the other side. The other way of thinking is evil. The other way of thinking is trying to destroy our country. And again, that's from both sides, and it creates this antagonistic atmosphere. It's unfortunate to see people going to those extremes. But anyway, let's talk some basketball here.
Do it.
Jimi Hendrix and Vader says, "Hey guys, Heat fan here. With both your cap expertise, I'm wondering what packages the Heat could give to get Brandon Ingram. Love you guys." Okay, well let me pull up the Heat's cap sheet here so we can see what we're working with. Brandon Ingram, Keith, top of my head, Brandon Ingram's coming in right around 36 million.
In might be a little shy. Let me see. Go ahead and pull up the Heat sheet. Yeah, just over 36 million for Brandon Ingram. Since it actually matters, 36 million, $16,200. So
okay,
just because you got to be even up.
So here is the Heat's cap sheet right now. Now, I mean, I suppose if you want, we've talked a lot about the Jimmy Butler situation, and he wants an extension. Does Miami want to give him that? Would Miami? I don't know if anybody wants to give Brandon Ingram the next big contract, but that's in terms of matching salaries, it would be the easiest to just add a piece to Brandon Ingram and swap it out for Jimmy Butler, and there you go. But I'd have to imagine that's probably not what a Heat fan wants. They would like to see Brandon Ingram come in and play with Jimmy Butler. So what salaries would you be stacking up to try to build this trade?
Yeah, I think the challenge is I don't know that Jimmy Butler works for the Pelicans. Not that Jimmy Butler is bad, but I think it's just you're kind of trading one issue for the same issue in that Jimmy Butler plays roughly the same position as Brandon Ingram, and he also needs a new contract after this season. He's got the player option, but really is like right there as far as needing a new contract. So yeah, you get into it, look a little deeper. I would now here's the challenge for Miami. Miami is over the first apron, so they have to match salary exactly or take back less than comes in. And they're only about 1.6 shy of the second apron. So they are also have to be very cautious if they aggregate salaries that they're bringing in less. So for those reasons, that starts to turn into something along the lines of Duncan Robinson and Terry Rozier. I don't, and I'm not saying that even works. I'm just kind of
math,
putting the combos together because I think you can rule out Butler. It's not going to be Bam Adebayo. I mean, maybe there's something that makes sense with Tyler Hero, but again, from the side with New Orleans, I think if you're really pushing to get Brandon Ingram in Miami, you have to find a 3-team trade that probably sends the stuff Miami is sending to somewhere else and gets New Orleans a big somehow in the course of that dealing. Because I don't know that there's a match between these two teams.
That's a great point. That's not, that wouldn't be what New Orleans is looking for. So is there a big that you could go find out there on the market? That is certainly something that New Orleans needs. And that's where, I don't know how feasible it is, but the first guy that pops into my head is, well, is there a way to work something out for DeAndre Ayton? Are the Blazers willing to make that move and move on from? I don't know. I don't think he's at an age. He's at the age cliff or anything. I think he's at a point where they could hang on to him. But that in terms of a big-ish salary that you could go target, there could be other options. Maybe you talk to Atlanta about Clint Capella or somebody like that. But I do agree with you there that I think ultimately the Heat and the Pelicans, while they both may have motivation to try to make a move, they're probably not the best direct trading partners. But you loop in a third team that can land a big in New Orleans, and then maybe you got something.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, even if they wanted to go a little bit of a different direction and go with a much smaller trade, Robert Williams to the Pelicans would be incredible. That'd be, man, imagine him now anchoring that back line. I think if you could get him without being ridiculous where it's like, we traded Zion or,
Right.
somebody really good, man, you're now that vaults that team way up for me. Like that puts them right on the border of, I'd probably put them in the mix with that top 4 in the West of Denver, Oklahoma City, Dallas, and Minnesota. Like
What
they're a good center away from that, in my
what are you
opinion.
willing to give to make that happen? If you're
To
the
get like
Pels?
Robert Williams,
Yeah, to give Robert Williams. And
yeah, I
I
mean,
believe off the top of my head, he's at what, like 11, 12 million,
yeah,
something
he's
like
like
that?
12, 13 million in that
Okay.
range. So that's now the nice thing is that's a super easily acquirable contract, right? Like
Right.
you're not having to do all that much to go get him. I'm certainly not giving anybody in the top 6 that isn't Brandon Ingram. So that's where, again, that would have to be part of a bigger trade
Mm-hmm.
where Ingram goes somewhere. I don't know if it's Portland, but go somewhere. That could be a way. Maybe you work with Miami and a couple of Miami guys land in Portland with a draft pick or 2 or something, and
Yeah.
Ingram goes to Miami, and then you kind of figure it out that way. You could definitely get there, if that was your end goal. Here's your big challenge. I'm glad you have the Pelicans sheet up.
Uh-huh.
We talked about this a little bit, but I think it was probably a week or 2 ago, and this will come up again, presumably when we do our big question for the Pelicans, which will probably be on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
But those top 6 guys, are there 6 best players that all need to play and all should start? So already you're down to one of them needs to go to the bench.
And none of
Probably
them is
not
a
the end of
center.
the world. You could figure that out. But none of them are center. So that means 2 of them need to go to the bench. All of a sudden, now we were talking about, all right, somewhere in the combination of, let's take McCollum and Murray a little bit out of the mix. Somewhere in the combination of Ingram, Jones, Murphy, and Zion.
Mm-hmm.
2 of those guys are going to be bench guys, and are just going to have to be happy with it. That's what I'm worried about with the Pelicans is sometimes we say this all the time. It's not about collecting talent. It's about collecting talent that fits together. And I'm just a little nervous that this is a lot of guys that need to play. And I don't know how happy some of these guys are going to be, especially guys like Ingram and Murphy who are looking for their next contracts. That's where this could get a little sideways.
So let me ask you this then, because I do think if the Pelicans don't make a trade, there's a big difference in the quality of those top 6 guys: Zion, BI, CJ, DeJounte Murray, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and say Daniel Tice, who I like just fine.
Yeah.
But he's not in your top 6 in terms of just overall talent. Is there a world where the Pelicans just say, screw it, we're putting 5 of our 6 best players on the floor, and you start Zion at the 5 and say, we're going to go Zion, BI, let's call it Herb Jones, DeJounte Murray, and CJ, or maybe it's Trey Murphy and
Sure.
DeJounte Murray, and you're running, Brandon Ingram is nominally your 2 or something like that. Is there a world where the Pelicans just say, we don't really have a center, so let's go all in on playing without a center, and Zion, you're going to be our 5, and let's roll with it?
I think that's how you close halves. I think you close the first half, close the second half that way. I think your challenge is starting that way. You're kind of starting from a deficit defensively and on the boards, because a couple of these guys they're okay rebounders for their position, but none of these guys are outstanding rebounders. That's the biggest thing that lacks in Zion's game right now. Other than, I'm obviously the health issues are the biggest thing, but if you take those out of the mix, if you just focus on the basketball, he's just not as good of a rebounder as he should be. He
Right.
should get 10 rebounds a night with ease, with his athleticism and his size and strength. There's no reason why he shouldn't get 10 rebounds a night. He doesn't track the ball well. He doesn't attack the glass that way. So now you have that issue. You have no rim protection in that group. And honestly, your perimeter defense is probably outside of Herb Jones. It's just okay. DeJounte Murray was not good in Atlanta. He really slipped as a defender. McCollum's not a good defender. Ingram's never really been a very good defender. And Murphy's okay, but he's kind of maybe above average. Herb Jones is incredible. He's amazing. So, yeah, I think you're going to have to play minutes like that. But I think at the very least, you start Daniel Tice and you give him the Keith Bogans, where it's plays the first 5 minutes each half and then you never see him again. That's just kind of to hold down the interior a little bit on a couple guys.
It's going to be interesting to see how they approach this. I think the Pelicans maybe, I'd have to really stop and look at all 30 teams, but the Pelicans maybe more than any team in the NBA need a move just to balance out their roster.
Yep.
Just to be able to realize their potential, because right now I think I like a lot of the players on this roster, and I know this is all we're pinballing off of a question more geared towards the Miami Heat, but the Pelicans are a fascinating team to me because I think that what has happened is that their ceiling is actually restricted by the lack of fit on this roster, and that they are a team where if you're able to loosen a few things up just by taking some assets and turning them into some pieces that fit a little bit better and just making those puzzle pieces work, this is a team that could shoot up in terms of their top level ceiling, in terms of where they can actually be and just where they would rank in the Western Conference. I think they can become a very, very dangerous team with the right move or two. The question is, can they find that move that will propel them? But it's like they're poised for it. They're ready for it. You just got to find the right deal and balance this thing out, and this team could skyrocket.
Yeah, big time. That's exactly it. It's just finding that move. And it's probably gonna have to involve Brandon Ingram. Like it just
for sure.
But we've talked about it multiple times with Brandon Ingram. It's not as much about the Pelicans trading him because they have the in-house replacements ready in Herb Jones and Trey Murphy. It's about finding a team that is willing to, one, give you value, or if they don't, in a 3-team deal, help you get value for Brandon Ingram, while also then being willing to pay Brandon Ingram his next contract because it makes sense for them. That's the challenge. That's where it gets really kind of like, I just don't know. I don't know who that team is. And nobody jumps out when you look at all the stuff around. It's just, it's just weird right now in New Orleans. It's a really good group. There's a ton of talent on this team.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even talk about like a guy like Jordan Hawkins.
Yeah.
As it stands right now, he's not even going to play. There are no minutes for him on this team. There just aren't, because you got to play bigs. You're going to have to play some combination of Tice, Missy, and Robinson Earl just to fill the minutes at the big man spot. They're going to have to play some. You're certainly not getting by with Zion playing the 5 for 38 minutes a night. It's just not going to happen. Or if it is, it's going to happen for about a month, and then he's going to get hurt. So you got to fill those minutes. So a guy like Jordan Hawkins, who I really like quite a bit, there's just not minutes for him. I just don't see where they come from. So it just like I said, a little bit of a weird team right now in New Orleans. Let's see what they do. I think they are a good candidate for a trade in the next month before we get to the start of the season, or one of those early season trades where something happens and the team's like, man, we need a wing and we got to go. I think New Orleans could be that team that jumps on it.
And that's a rare thing to see a trade this time of year.
Yep.
Typically, though, in terms of timing, if we are going to see a trade this time of year, we've got training camp starting up in a couple of weeks. Most teams would prefer to get it done before everybody reports to camp, because a lot of players they're already back in their home markets. They're already doing stuff at their training facilities. They're building those relationships. The sooner you can get something done before camp, the more time that is with the player to be around all the rest of the guys, build that chemistry heading into the season. So it's not like, oh, the night before the season starts, hey, guess what? Here's 3 new players because we just made this trade and off we go. Teams don't want to do that. They can, but they don't want to. So if we're going to see something happen, most likely we're going to see it happen prior to training camps starting up. Doesn't mean it can't happen after, but again, it's unlikely that we see anything go down this time of year in general. It becomes a lot less likely once teams get all the guys in and camp starts.
Yep, agreed.
All right, let's go here. Who's your guys' pick for Rookie of the Year? I don't think we've actually discussed this before, Keith. I've got a pick that I am pretty bullish on, and maybe it's not a surprise. Maybe it's not a surprise here.
I'm gonna guess we have the same one.
Maybe.
I'm just guessing.
I think opportunity is everything when it comes to Rookie of the Year. Part of a big chunk of it anyway. Talent is obviously incredibly important, but for me, it's Zach Edey. I look at Zach Edey, the opportunity he's going to have to step in immediately in Memphis. maybe that's not an exciting answer because right now he's the betting favorite to win Rookie of the Year. But again, looking at the opportunity he's going to have on a pretty damn good Grizzlies team that I'm excited to see this season, I think Zach Edey makes a lot of sense to be the guy that walks away with Rookie of the Year.
Yep, I am with you. I think Rookie of the Year is it is probably the award that still mostly is based on counting stats. So it's how many points did you score? How many rebounds did you get? Part of, in order to pile those stats up, is guys have to play a lot. Matt Moore, Hardwood Paroxysm, HP Basketball, over on Twitter, asked a really good question. Of the top 15 guys drafted, I don't know if you can easily pull that probably from Basketball Reference, just pull up the 2024 draft class. What was that?
Of this past draft?
Yeah, this past draft. Yeah. How many of the top 15 guys drafted are going to start this year? And what he meant was more not like we'll start at. I think he more meant like we'll start like a lot or right out of the gate. It's kind of Zach Edey is the only one for me. I think guys like Alex Sarr, Zachary Risache, I think those guys will eventually end up in the starting group. But if you look at it, so there's your top 8.
Right.
Sarr, they signed Jonas Valanciunas so that Sarr didn't have to start. Yeah, he can play at the 4, but you also still have Kyle Kuzma. Risache's in that middle of a ton of wings and forwards. Reed Shepard's got veteran guys in front of him. Stephon Castle's got veteran guys in front of him. Ron Holland was drafted as developmental project. Same thing with Tajon Salon. Donovan Clingan's got 2 centers in front of him. Rob Dillingham's behind Mike Conley. Then we get to Edey. His path's fairly straightforward to starting. Cody Williams probably not going to start at small forward in Utah. Modest Buzelis not going to start in Chicago. Nikola Topic isn't even going to play this season. Devin Carter's not going to play for months. And then you get to Bob Carrington. Maybe eventually he starts, but not right away. And Khalil Ware's not going to start likely right away, if at all, at least early in this season. So this was a draft class that was largely much more projects and developmental players than we've seen in recent years. In this case, Zach Edey is pretty ready to go, plug and play, drop him in, and off we go. So that's why I'm picking Zach Edey too. It was a great question that Matt asked over on Twitter, and that's and when you really start breaking it down, it's true. Like, yeah, man, Edey's probably going to be the only one who gets a bunch of minutes.
You think Stephon Castle will, but by the end of the season,
start over? He's not going to start over Chris Paul or Devin Vassell. And then you got to remember Harrison Barnes is there now. Because I've seen people saying, well, Vassell will slide up. You have Jeremy Sohan, who they love. You have Keldon Johnson. You have Harrison Barnes, and then you got Wemby playing at the 5. I don't see it. Not this first year.
I would, by the end of the season, I would make the shift and start him over Chris Paul. By the end of the season, not saying immediately, and that's if his progression is coming along and everything like that. But if I'm the Spurs, I want Castle to have those reps. Because I'm not assuming they're going to, maybe they do make a run this year, but I'm not assuming they do. This is going to be about building. If I'm the Spurs, I want him to get that opportunity and get that experience as the starter, assuming his play, I make him earn it, but assuming his play warrants it, I wouldn't have a problem with doing that if I'm San Antonio.
Yeah, maybe, right? And I think there's a world where that is how it goes, but I think that's like a post All-Star break. Kind of
yeah. No, I'm not saying that.
And that's not going to be enough to. Yeah, I just don't. I think he's going to play a lot. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to play 25, 30 minutes a game as soon as he's able to handle that many minutes. No problem. And then we may even get to a point where he may not start, but Chris Paul may get the Keith Bogans rather, where it's like it turns into he's out there to start each half. And then Castle is in there pretty quickly, and he's not the starter, but playing time wise, he gets there. So yeah, and then as somebody just pointed out, Chris Paul will probably get hurt. Yeah, there's a chance that'll happen. And if that happens, yeah, then Stephon Castle will probably step in and start. But you got to remember too, they still have Trey Jones, and at least initially, I don't think after last year screwing around with Jeremy Sohan as the point guard for the first 20 games or whatever. And then finally it was like, all right, we got to stop because this is actively hurting everybody else's development. I don't think they're going to be like, you know what we should do? Let's plug a rookie point guard in there right now. Like, I think that's probably all right, we kind of know what we are as a team. Let's, kind of throw him in there. A lot of people are saying Buzelis too. I mean, maybe. I just don't. Who's he going to start over? Like, the Bulls have a lot of guys. Because, yes,
if they make a trade, you could clear the way for him.
Yes, absolutely. If they make a trade, then for sure he could definitely step in. I don't. We got to go off what we know right now, and I just don't see it today. Like, and I mean, I would like to say the Bulls are going to make a trade, but are they? Like,
and again, I think this is why we both land on Zach Edey, because these other guys that we're talking about, something has to happen. Something has to happen for them to get the kind of opportunity that is warranted, that is needed in order to win Rookie of the Year, right? That's what has to happen. Zach Edey, that's there. It's already that we already know they drafted him to be their center. They drafted him he's plugged in. Off we go. The other guys, something has to happen. So, and I think Edey is talented. I think he'll put up numbers, and like you said, that matters for Rookie of the Year. So that's why we've got him winning it.
This is related to Modest Buzelis. No chance he starts over Zach LaVine. They need to start Zach LaVine and play him if for no other reason to show he's fully healthy and rebuild his trade value. Like, there's no chance he starts over Zach LaVine. No chance at all.
No, they need LaVine, as you said, his trade value to be brought back up. All right, let's go here. No Cap said, hey guys, how much cap space would Golden State Warriors have next season, letting Melton, Kuminga, Mooney, Looney all walk? Pretty much all they're expiring. So I just pulled this up from Spot Track, Keith, but I would have to imagine, is there a calculation in there, like, is Kuminga's money?
Yeah, so those are all books there sitting in there. Yeah, so like you can see, they have 124 million in cap holds next year, and that's because of the big cap holds for guys like Kuminga and Moody. But let's just say they wipe all those guys out. Guy Santos is gone. I'll keep Trace Jackson Davis on there because that's a minimum deal. Let's even say they trade away their draft pick. They are at that point, they're still over the cap. It's in it. People always are like, how? Like, they have so few guys. Stephen Curry makes $59.6 million next season. Just Curry, Green, and Wiggins alone is $113.7 million. Against a cap of 154, you're not far off. And then you throw a $9 million for Anderson, $9 million for Hield. All of a sudden, it all starts to pile in there, and that's
open roster spot charges.
Yep, exactly. So that's where you get to a spot where it is. There we are. Like, so probably none. I mean, now if you can get off of Wiggins for an expiring deal, that's a different story. Now we've changed the math. We start to really then look and say, all right, maybe we can get there. But
Keith, we got this question coming in. Said, would an AJ Griffin trade help the Lakers? Does AJ Griffin? What's going on with AJ Griffin? It seems like there's something bigger that I'm not worried about. Is he going to help team X, Y, or Z right now, or should there be a trade or anything? What's going on? Why is he looking at stepping away from the game of basketball? That's way before anything of what could he bring on the floor and all of that. It's does he want to play basketball, and what's really happening with him? From that report from yesterday about him seriously considering stepping away, obviously there must be something significant happening in his life, and so that's first, way before any of this.
And it's not. I don't think there's anything with him, whatever is causing this, because he's a Houston Rocket. That would be why he's doing this. And if this question is more designed, hey, would it help the Lakers because they would then get him off the cap sheet? It doesn't work that way. You'd have to be retired for a full year before that money would come off the books. It doesn't come off the books right away unless he said, waive me and I'm going to give you back I think he's owed like $3.9 million for this year. If he said that, then that's a little bit of a different conversation, right? Because then he'd
Yeah.
just be like, hey, I'm giving all the money back. Like, it's fine. But as it stands right now, if he just says, I'm retiring, and the team moves on from him, and you have to waive him, that just goes on the money as dead books. And that would not even help at all from a, hey, that frees up a little extra spending power or anything like that. And to be honest, we talked about this the other day. The Lakers are like 45K under the second apron.
Yeah.
3.9 million doesn't increase that enough. That it wouldn't hurt, don't get me wrong, but it wouldn't increase it enough. And they just, that's not, there's nothing there with this.
All right, let's see what we can find here. Oh, coming to the Lakers definitely wouldn't help him mentally. It can be a pressure cooker, that's for sure. And we don't know if that's what the issue is with him or not. We don't know what's going on there. Keith, let's go to this one. How long realistically can the Celtics be kept together? I mean, as long as they're above the second tier apron, we're gonna hit those. I guess it depends. Like, are they willing to say draft pick 7 years from now goes to the back of the first round, and we're okay with that penalty, or do they look at stuff like that and they say, nah, we really need to drop below the second tier apron. We don't want to deal with that. What do you think is the decision making going to look like in Boston?
No, it's a great question, and I just dropped a link in the chat. I just literally wrote about them and it posted today about something. If people have been watching the show for a while, that I'm fond of saying, they're letting tomorrow's problems be tomorrow's problems. They're not worried about 2, 3, 4 years down the line and what it looks like. I had a couple people respond already and say, yeah, with the cap spikes, it's not going to matter. They'll be fine. It helps, don't get me wrong, but it's not. They're still wildly expensive. Next year, they will turn into being the most expensive team we've probably ever seen in the NBA. They're going to be well in range of $500 million between salary and tax penalties. So I think there's a couple things that'll have to be answered down the line. New ownership coming in.
Mm-hmm.
What's their stomach for paying and how much are they willing to pay? Are they winning enough to justify paying that much? That means we're contending to go to the finals every single year, if not in the finals, or if not winning titles. Can you justify it that way? And then it also becomes, what do they do with the roster in general? Do guys just age out and move on? How does that all kind of come together? So realistically, you've got this year, next year, and maybe the year after with most of this core group. And then you just kind of go forward from there. So I think that's your kind of just short answer is probably got 2 more years at least, and then maybe a third. And then we'll kind of see where it goes.
And again, we'll see what happens, obviously, with I mean, Keith, how much longer is Al Horford going to play?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like that.
Yep.
So the math,
and that's even taking him out of the mix after this year,
right?
Like the season we're about to start, because he doesn't have a contract. Without even him factored in there, if you factor him back in at let's just say 10 million, because it's roughly what he made the last couple of years. Well, now that just adds to the bill. We're even closer to that $500 million figure. Actually, never mind. We'd be way over it because they're running into two things. Two things happen next season, the 25-26 season. That is the last, here now, everything that's going to punish the most expensive teams come in. So this year, you had all the apron restrictions hit in full. Mm-hmm. Next season, what happens is the tax bands change. And what the tax bands change is if you're only a little over the tax, you don't get hit as hard, because that's how you kind of promote, hey, don't let the tax be a barrier. We're not going to kill you if you're a little over the tax. But if you are way over the tax, whoa, holy cow, you have now you're getting drilled even harder than you ever have. And on top of that, Boston will be a repeater team when that rolls in. So now it's here's everything. So that 10 million for Horford, that's really going to cost them probably my guess is much closer to 80 is what it's probably about an 8-time multiplier on top of what he would actually be making.
The number in my head, Keith, before you said that was okay. It'll probably be 40 or 50. And I thought,
I think it's going to be closer to 80.
That's a lot. When you said 80,
Yeah. I think it'll be closer to about an 8-time multiplier if they add 10. That's why even adding a guy on a minimum at just over 2 million becomes a huge remember when everybody was like the Warriors are paying Dante DiVincenzo $5 million, but it's really costing them 25 or 30.
Right.
Now that goes up and up and up with all that. So it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, they had that Kelly Oubre was like 80 million or something for the Warriors or because of those penalties. All right, let's go rapid fire through a few more questions here before we run off to the weekend. Chris said, "Do you think there is a team, Minnesota included, who would offer Gobert a max contract for his age 33 through 36 seasons?" I would say no.
Yeah,
I would not recommend it. Like, I would not be happy if I was a fan of a team that gave him a max contract, because a max contract in today's NBA, in today's CBA, says he's a top 2 guy on your team.
Yep.
I don't think you're winning a championship with Gobert as a top 2 guy on your team. So
yeah,
it's not that he's bad. He's not. But are you saying he's one of our top 2 star players? I'm more comfortable with him as a 3rd or 4th guy. So I don't think you should be giving him a max contract, and then you factor in the age. You really shouldn't do it.
So let's just let's say this was Rudy Gobert opts out next year.
Yeah.
And we're covering the years off that Chris is asking about here. That would be a $54 million contract that he would sign next year if he got the full max. And then over the life of that contract, you're talking roughly a 60 million average contract, 240 million over those 4 years. Too much, just too much.
It's too much money.
You just can't do it. That's just your challenge. I think go ahead.
I was going to say, but we see situations like this sometimes. We just saw it with Jamal Murray, where the rationale is, well, you can't replace him. Could we see the Wolves in that type of a situation where they just say, you know what, this is a little bit more than what we want to give him, but we also know if he walks away, we don't have spending power to go replace him, so we're just going to bite the bullet and do it? Is that I think is Gobert's best shot at getting, I even hesitate to say a max contract, but getting a big, hefty, that kind of Woj bomb comes out and everybody goes, whoa, he got how much? Getting that kind of a contract, I think the best shot is the Wolves saying, we can't replace him, so we're just going to do it.
I think less so for that reason, but more so for we gave up the farm and draft picks to get him. So I think, because if you think about it, like, can't replace him. We have Towns, just make him a 5 again. You have re-signed Naz Reid, and we're good. We just move on. You're not going to be as good of a team. You're certainly not going to be as good of a defensive team without Gobert, because that's the thing that I think gets missed in discussing Rudy Gobert. Sam Vecini and I talked about this a lot on Game Theory last night, because Gobert is extension eligible. And my thought was, what would be best is, let's get him, let's say, Brady said to me, I know you just pulled it down. It was like 45 million for next season.
There you go.
I guess 46.6 for next season. Let's say everybody was like, you know what we'll do for you is, we're going to give you $90 million. We're going to spread it out over the next 3 seasons. So we're going to add a couple seasons on the end. You're going to be at about 30 million. Even if it was 100 million, in that range, like somewhere in that range, we're going to give you a bunch of money, but we're going to bring your number down next year. And then he's paid far more in a commensurate rate with what we think. This guy's still one of the best defensive big men in the entire NBA. Still playing at an all defense, even a defensive player of the year level. He's still that good. I think the challenge is, you're just in a spot whether you're the Wolves. You're right. You can't replace the salary slot if he walks away. Positionally, I would be like, hey, man, if you're insisting that it has to be a max deal, I'm certainly saying bye. And then I'm looking at a trade. Like, I'm having that conversation right now today. And I'm going to look at, all right, what can we do to trade you to rebalance a little? That's when I'm calling New Orleans and being like, hey, so Brandon Ingram, what do you think? Well, want to do something like there? You want to make something happen, and we'll get by with the other guys, just because I'm not going to drop all of that money into paying another guy, especially when the last few years of that contract probably gonna be like, these aren't so good.
Yeah. All right,
While we're on the Wolves, somebody asked something about Rob Dillingham, and I can't find it now. But I think it was like, how much is he going to play? I think he plays a decent amount. I don't think he'll play.
They went and got
I
him
think
for a
their
reason.
goal is plays quite a bit, and then he is next season at some point, maybe even the start. Him and Conley flip flop, and Conley becomes his backup, and he's ready to be the starting point guard. And they
Makes
just,
sense.
ships passing in the night kind of situation.
All right, let's go here. Jalen said, "Do you guys think Markelle Fultz remains a free agent or signs an Exhibit 10 deal for somewhere?" I really think. I mean, we've talked about this, that he's kind of waiting for the right opportunity, someplace where he knows he's going to get that shot. And what I would imagine is somebody's going to turn an ankle bad enough to be out a couple months or something like that's going to happen in training camp or in preseason, and Markelle Fultz is going to be the first call a team makes in order to replace a guard. I think that's most like, and that's not, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but I think that's most likely the way this is going to wind up going, because it doesn't seem like there's a clear landing spot for him right now.
Yep, I'm with you on that. I don't think he feels necessarily the need to do the Exhibit 10 kind of thing. That is becoming more of a thing that veteran guys do, and guys who are pretty good players. Lonnie Walker's a good example of it. But yeah, I don't think he's going to do that. I think you're right. I think let's wait and see what develops, and if a spot comes, then now I'm in and I'm ready to go.
All right, Dylan says, any news on the Jalen Suggs contract and what could be holding up that deal? So Suggs under contract for just under $9.2 million this season, but is extension eligible. Will be a restricted free agent next summer. Keith, I know you're pretty plugged in there in Orlando. What are they thinking right now on Suggs, trying to get a deal done now, or are they going to let him hit restricted free agency and then play out that way?
I think they're going to do what they can to try to get a deal done. The reality is, unless you are a kind of no-brainer max rookie scale guy, those generally don't get done until end of September, beginning part of October, as we get closer to the deadline, which is right before the start of the season. That's why we had that. Remember that last weekend, right before the start of the year, we had that flood of deals last year that a bunch of guys extended on. Denny Avdia, Onyeka Okongwu, Peyton Pritchard, Zeke Naji, those guys, because they're not max guys. I think with Suggs, with the max, he's probably thinking, I would like a max or close to it. The Magic are probably like, we'd like you to be a little bit under that. And there's probably just the negotiating going on. And then we'll land there and they'll kind of get to a spot. So I think you're in a spot with Suggs where my guess is it gets done, just because the Magic have preferred not to let this stuff linger. Unless one side or the other is being completely unreasonable. If the Magic are like, no, we're not going over 20 million, and Suggs is like, I'm not coming off a max, then you don't have any room, right? Then it's definitely going in restricted free agency. But I think they'll get to a more reasonable place.
And remind me, October 31st, the deadline for rookie extensions?
No, so October 31st, the deadline for rookie scale team options, right before the start of the season, is the rookie scale extension.
Okay.
Yeah. All extensions, and rookie scale extensions, then any veteran extensions for players to have 2 or more seasons remaining on their contract.
Okay. So that's going to be something as guys report to camp. Look, if this isn't done before media day, there's going to be questions asked about this on media day, and that's okay. They may still get something done.
That's kind of like a loose deadline sometimes for some of this stuff.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Here is Nic Claxton tradable.
Sure.
I mean, sure, technically, yeah. They could trade him. I know there's teams out there that need a big. The question is, will anybody pay the Nets asking price? But if you're the Nets, I mean, he's young enough to be part of your future, so it's not like you have to move him. But if you're the Nets, why not? It's rebuild, go wild. If cash in assets, if you get the right offer, and there you go. But again, it would take the right offer. I don't think the Nets should be in any rush to try to move him, but. Sure. Yeah, you could definitely, if the right deal comes along and you say this is going to help us 3 years from now be good, there you go.
And I would have to look and see. I think Claxton's trade restriction is technically January 15th, but but tradable, just in terms of, is he generally tradable? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think, we talked about this quite a bit the other day when we were talking about Day'Ron Sharpe, and then I talked a little bit about Noah Clowney. A lot of it comes down to where are you at on Claxton? If you're the Nets, is it we signed him because the value is just too good to pass up? Or is it we signed him because we think he's going to be a big part of whatever the next good Nets team is, and we believe him? And if it's the latter, you're not looking to trade him. If it was, hey, it's just too good of a value to pass up, then sure. Then that definitely becomes a conversation point of, all right, what do you want to give us for him? And I to your point too, I mean, somebody starts rolling in with crazy offers, yeah, then he's going to get traded no matter what.
Yeah,
he's not that level of guy where you're like, no, he's not an untradeable guy on the Nets roster at all. I think the only untradeable thing they have is their own 2024 first round pick. As far as like, hey, we can't trade this, we got to keep it. Like that's off limits. And 2025 first round pick. Yeah, we got to keep that. Anything else? Let's have a conversation.
All right, let's go again. Well,
hold on. Let's go here because our guy is correct. Spike. Let's go. Let's get that going. Let's go.
Some of these we may save to hang on to for next week because I know we are running short on time here. But let's go. This one. Miguel said, "Any bold takes for the season? Mine, if mostly healthy, Orlando makes the Eastern Conference Finals." Okay,
spicy.
That is spicy. That's spicy. I know I am higher on the Sacramento Kings than most people are. I don't know what that's going to mean for them playoff wise, but I think regular season they're going to be a very good team. I don't know that that's that bold of a take. I guess my next Keith, I know you're higher on the Hornets. We've talked about this than most people are. So
let's be reasonable. I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I want people to be like, "Well, wait, he thinks
no." I mean, you're not. It's not like you're saying they're a contender or anything like that. But most people have them as like an obvious lottery team, one of the worst teams in the NBA, and you believe they're going to be a bit better than that kind of like bottom of the barrel tier.
Yeah. So here's my actual bold take. I'll give you someone out of in the East. I'm going to give you one for each because it's similar for both. Someone out of the East grouping of New York, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia either doesn't finish in the top 4 and or doesn't make the second round of the playoffs. All right. And I think there's a pretty defined line for most people that it's Boston, New York, Philly, Milwaukee, some order. Those are the top 4. But that's my pick for the East. My pick for the West is same scenario, but I think it's a little less defined because they're a little closer. But OKC, Denver, Minnesota, and Dallas, one of their top 4 right now, isn't a top 4 team in the regular season and or doesn't make the second round of the playoffs.
And my hot take here would be that it's Denver that drops out.
Yeah,
that Denver's the team that drops out. Feels terrible because they've got Jokic, and that's usually all that it takes. But I think this is the year that Denver takes a bit of a step back. I think losing KCP hurts them significantly. So
I'll even go to a part 2 of that.
Yeah,
for the West, the team that does get in the top 4, the Memphis Grizzlies.
I like it.
I think Memphis is going to be awesome this year. Literally all of their issues last year were injury related. It wasn't roster construction. It was injury related and Ja's suspension. If even they get to a fraction of better than that this year, they're going. That's where I'm at.
In my head, I've got just dreams of a Grizzlies Wolves playoff series.
Man. How fun was that a couple years ago?
Right. Yeah. I want to see that, especially given the rosters right now. There'd be, so much to get into matchup wise and everything. It would be an absolute blast of a series if you got those two. All right. Let's
want to rip through the last couple super chats and then
let's do that. Okay. Let's do that. Why is San Diego never mentioned as a possible expansion city? It's one of the 10 biggest cities in the U.S. Not many sports fans there. I mean, it's pretty much a Lakers town. I know the Clippers are around as well. And the Clippers were in San Diego for a bit, but there's a lot of Lakers fans there. I think that's part of it. But I mean, it's a fair point. Like they just lost the Chargers too. Like, there's all that.
It's the same thing as why isn't Tampa ever mentioned in Central Florida as
Sure.
like getting an expansion team. Orlando would fight against it, and they do everything they could to block it. The Lakers and Clippers do not want a team in San Diego. Not that they would all of a sudden like, holy cow, but guaranteed there are people who maybe make the trip to see one of the two of those teams 2, 3, 4 times a year. There's a team in their own backyard. They're not doing that anymore. They're just, now with the Lakers, especially, they'll just get replaced with somebody else who will do it instead. But there's a finite amount of people that you can put into these things. That's why you can have teams everywhere. And I love San Diego. It's one of my favorite places in the country. It's a great city. I love, the food. San Diego's great, but it's
weather.
The weather is, it's about as close to perfect as you can get. Where it's like basically between 65 and 75 every day. Just, amazing. So,
all right, let's go here. Mamadou said, I feel like the Lakers could have been a 50-win team. Darvin Ham cost us a couple of games. I mean, they won 47 games. If you say Darvin messed up a couple of times down the stretch in games and stuff, and, didn't call timeouts when he should have, or had his hands in his pockets, or whatever you want to fault him with, you could make the argument. Now, that said, I think any coach is going to make mistakes. So are there, if you, let's say like JJ Redick is going to make mistakes. Will he make the same mistakes as Darvin? Hopefully not, because that's kind of the reason that you're brought in. But he's going to make other mistakes, maybe things that we're not anticipating. So it's not always that you just, we solved all of the problems this way. You may have solved a few of the problems from last season, but there's also going to be some other problems that are going to pop up that maybe you didn't think you were going to have. So it's not always just a direct, we swapped out this guy, that plugs all of these leaks, everything is fixed, and we're good. You can still improve, but every coach is going to make some kind of mistake, even the best coach in the NBA, and that's something you just have to factor in.
Yeah, you're also, that's not insane, because it's not like they won 35 games, and you're like, they could have been a 50-win. They were almost one anyway. That's a matter of 1 or 2 games all season going a different way. And they are. So,
All right. Happy Front Office Friday. Do you think Jordan Poole finishes his contract with the Wizards? Who could you see going after him and the best fit?
I have no idea on the second part. I'll say no, because I think, they'll move him eventually with that. But, I have no idea. I think he finishes the season on the Wizards. I struggle to see him anywhere else right now. Like, that's a challenge. But,
I did have the Wizards. Here it is. Jordan Poole, $29 million, almost $30 million this season, $32 million the next season, and then $34 million after that. Yeah. Nobody's lining up to take that contract right now. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, if Jordan Poole has a nice year and a team's like, what we need is like what good Jordan Poole was, which is a whole bunch of points off the bench. Yeah, maybe. But right now, probably not. It's another year or so. Let's, then we'll see.
All right. Matthew said, no donation just in case the Celtics and the NBA fire Keith. Have a great weekend.
Appreciate that.
So I did not read that one ahead of time. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. If you saw what's going on over on X.
Work for. So, the funny thing related to that was I had people like, yeah, right, you don't work for the Celtics. We all know. And I'm like, trust me, if I worked for the Celtics, you would all know. Like,
Keith, we wouldn't be able to talk about literally 99% of the things we talk about if you worked for
the show wouldn't exist anymore.
No, the show would not exist.
Yeah.
We would have nothing. We would not be able to say anything about any of these players.
Really. Basketball is good now. Marvel movies.
Exactly.
The extent of it. Yeah. So.
Greg said Boston's overrated. East got better and they didn't. Denver, Golden State, Milwaukee, Lakers, Raptors couldn't repeat in recent years. Why is Boston different? Unlikely to get so lucky again. Okay, so I've got 2 things here. First of all, he does raise the point that we haven't had a repeat champion anytime recently, which is what the NBA wants. They want there to be this constant turnover, and it's an interesting period in NBA history because we're seeing a new champion come in every single year. That said, the whole Boston going to get so lucky again. I don't think they got lucky last year at all. I thought they were an extremely well-constructed team. I thought they were filled with two-way players, and they won because they were the best team. Like, to me, that's not – you get lucky if you're not the best team and one guy gets hot in a series and then you wind up winning. And next thing you know, you just kind of, you find your way through, and there's merit to that. And you don't take anything away from those teams because that's part of the sport. But I think Boston won because they are legitimately the best team. And I'm saying that wearing a Lakers shirt, they were the best team. I don't think there's any arguing that from last season.
I'll also add, and I'll just ask you, you may know this off the top of your head. Do you know how many games they won the East by last year?
Oh, it was something ridiculous. Wasn't it like 15 or something?
14. Yeah,
14.
They won the East by 14 games. They had a plus 11.8 scoring differential in the regular season. That is fourth best in NBA history. So they mauled teams. They ran away with the East. The East was over by like the All-Star break, and they destroyed teams this season. When they lost, they barely lost. And when they won, it was generally by a pretty big number. So, yeah, I mean, things, they certainly get some breaks along the way. I'm not going to say they didn't in the postseason. But in the postseason, they went 16-3, and they beat teams by almost 9 points per game, which is also one of the higher numbers. So
they ran into a lot of injured teams.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean they wouldn't have won those series anyway.
Correct.
Like they would have been, even if those teams were healthy, they still would have been the favorite to win the series.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They just had one of those magical years where it all kind of worked. And the one thing that people keep saying is, well, they didn't have any injuries. Kristaps Porzingis missed a lot of time last year, including most of the playoffs. So, and they still did all that. But I'm by no means am I like their lock, but I can tell you right now they're my pick to win the title just because I'm more confident in them winning the title than I am any other team. And that's got nothing to do with me being a Celtics fan. That's just I think they're the best team right now. Like I think it'll be harder. I think other teams get better, but yeah, I think they're right there. Like we'll see. But that's we're a month out from it all starting again, and we're almost there.
This is it exactly. This sums up my feelings. I hate the Celtics as much as the next guy, but it's okay to say they were the best team last year. This is coming from a Mavs fan. Yeah, because it's just not truthful otherwise.
Yeah.
Like it's just not
the reason why I get so mad when people say the Lakers bubble title didn't count. It was the same for everybody. Yeah. Like it counts. They all count. Was it a weird situation? We always remember remember that one season that finished in empty gyms at Disney World? Of course we will. But it's just a footnote. It still counts. It's still a title. Do I wish they didn't have it? Yeah, absolutely. I wish they didn't have it. I wish Boston was +2 right now. They're not. And it is what it is, and we move on. I don't like the whole it doesn't count because of whatever. And I'll find it eventually and pull it up because somebody did a tweet that was like, here's all the titles that didn't count, and it's like going back to like the 1970s. Like
every title.
And it's just absurd, stupid reasons for everyone. And it's like everybody can say that. So But yeah.
All right. Well, with that, let's head off to the weekend. I know I've got more stuff going on for Lakers today. So if you're coming over from Lakers Nation, I've got more stuff coming out in a little bit. About to record some things with my guy, Ron Gutterman. So that's going to be coming up there. But appreciate everybody joining the show today. This was indeed a fun front office Friday. So hope
one more like Spike.
Yes, hit that like button. And don't forget, subscribe. We want to get our subscribers up as much as we can heading into the season. It's coming up in just a few weeks. So if you're over on the YouTube channel and you're not a subscriber yet, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button as well. Till next time, everybody, have a fantastic weekend. See ya and stay safe.
Don't get fired.